I'm going to speak to you today about a very different consumer or customer experience situation. That is about everyday brands, right? Everyday brands like Oreo cookies, Cadbury chocolates, the kind of brands that you have grown up with all your life, and how customer experience looks like in that scenario. The thing with our brands, the thing with a brand like Oreo, is that while it is loved by everybody, it is inherently a low involvement purchase, right? You buy it as part of a grocery shopping trip, and therefore, you don't put as much energy into it. So therefore, the real question is, how do you drive a compelling consumer and customer experience in that kind of shopping mission? So I want to introduce our company first. We're one of the largest snack food companies in the world. We have a portfolio of brands, like it was mentioned before, that's loved by millions around the world. We're the #1 chocolate company in the world, the #1 biscuit maker, the #1 candy company, and the #2 chewing gum company. Our mission as a company, what it is that we're out there trying to achieve, is to create delicious moments of joy in people's lives, right? So for us, joy is the key word here, because our products, our food products, first of all, they are food products that are enjoyed by people, but nevertheless, they are snack food products. That is, they're the kind of products that are eaten to bring a small escape during your everyday routine. And how do we bring this kind of experience of joy into the way in which consumers experience our brands is very, very important to us. So let me just take you through this digitization of the consumer in Asia and where it actually begins. Because Asia is a big place. And one part of Asia looks something like this. And this is how consumers experience our brands today. So if you were in any of the developed markets around the world, in Asia, Japan, Australia, Singapore, and so forth, you would probably have engaged with our brands, Oreo and Cadbury, in a supermarket environment like this. So just put yourself, you've all been in this scenario, put yourself in what a consumer experience looks like in a supermarket. You are there with a shopping list, most likely. Chocolate and biscuits may or may not be on that list. You're going to have a whole bunch of staples, and you're going to walk through a busy set of shopping aisles to fill your grocery basket and get out of there as quickly as you can. So in this kind of environment, the way in which we have to build consumer experiences looks dramatically different. We've got to take the brand building that we've done outside of the store and bring it to life within a store environment. This is what we do in developed markets, but the rest of Asia looks something like this. Millions of mom and pop stores around the region in markets like India, China, and Indonesia. Consumer experience in this context, for chocolates, for example, which melts, by the way, in hot countries, looks something like this. And you can see that picture on the right-hand side with a purple box. That's what we call a visibility cooler, a visi cooler. We put that in place for millions of stores in many markets around the world to keep chocolate cool and present the chocolate in a way in which consumers can enjoy it the way they expect it to enjoy it, no matter where they are in the country. So in our environment, because we don't actually control the point of sale, or historically haven't controlled the point of sale, managing customer and consumer experience can be quite complex. But the interesting thing about Asia is that shopping habits are changing, and that's why I'm here talking to you about it, because I actually run e-commerce for Mondelez, and my focus is the digital consumer in many of these markets. Shopping habits are fundamentally shifting, and in fact, the more common shopping situation that we see actually looks something like this now, okay? With a significant smartphone penetration in many markets around Asia, what we see is that shopping trips happen on subways, in front of a TV at home, that's where our brands are actually being presented to consumers. And in fact, if you look at some of our categories around the world, especially if you look at a market like China, more than 10% of our categories already now being sold online. More than 10%. So that means if you take biscuits, more than 10% of biscuits is now being purchased online by a consumer that we don't directly have access to via either a supermarket or via a mom and pop store. The thing with this environment, of course, is when you're looking at a brand or you're looking to make a purchase online, not only are you actually consummating a sale, you're also engaging with the brand. There's an opportunity for you to engage with the brand because the smartphone is also a medium, right? It's media. And really, therefore, we needed to make sure that we were taking control of this point of sale and bringing our brands to their full potential and drive sales growth at the same time. So I want to talk to you specifically about China today and some things that we've done in China. Now, the consumer, the Asian consumer, some characteristics about the Asian consumer that I want to share. And we've done a lot of work on this sort of stuff. First of all, they typically tend to be younger, better educated. That's not a surprise. They're smartphone addicts, and that's really what's fueling this shift of consumers to this new medium. They're looking for new experiences. This is a really important point. That means that when a consumer goes online, even for everyday brands, even for food products, what they're looking or expecting is a differentiated product that they can't access easily in a store, or a compelling experience, immersive experience. We've seen this time and time again. I've done focus groups in Shanghai, in Mumbai, and I've been told this repeatedly. So for example, in Shanghai, I met a lady in a house, in a family, and she was telling me about how she goes to Tmall, which is Alibaba's storefront environment. And she goes on to Tmall at around 10 o'clock in the night after her kids have gone to bed, and half the time she's actually not there to buy anything specific. She browses Tmall as if she were window shopping, similar to how we might browse Facebook. And it's quite incredible because when she's on Tmall, she's able to engage with video content, new news, participate in contests, and occasionally make a purchase as well. And therefore, this experiential part of the online environment is absolutely critical. And in fact, the other data point I want to give you is if you take biscuits, 8 out of 10 biscuits sold online in China are differentiated imports, and 6 out of 10 are uniquely Western flavor profiles. So that means it's very clear that consumers are looking for something different online. And they're also looking for personalized interactions. We've also seen this time and time again. Okay? Now, the interesting thing about personalized interactions is, again, I've done focus groups in India. In India, those mom and pop stores I showed you before, there are millions of them. And we again interviewed somebody who was the mom of the house. And we asked her, why is it that you shop online for your groceries when there's literally, a mom and pop store right outside your house? Especially when that mom and pop store is owned by somebody who knows you personally, so it is genuinely a personalized interaction. We found her response was that she was able to tailor experiences online via the various marketplaces and online platforms that were uniquely personalized to her, that were giving her access to a range that she couldn't find in the store, and most importantly, that it was heavily convenient because she was on her smartphone all day anyway for everything else. So it was a natural adjacency to also take her shopping trips online as well. So this personalization is the key to winning the digital consumer, is what we've found. And what I want to talk to you about is a case study about Oreo cookies. And I hope all of you have tried Oreo cookies. I'm sure you have. Oreo cookies is a 100-year-old brand around the world. In China, it was launched in 1996. And in China, by the way, it has got 80% plus awareness, brand awareness around the country. So that is a huge level of brand awareness, and it's a brand that's loved by millions in China. So it's been around for a while, it's loved by millions, but here's the thing. The first point is that while it's loved by millions, biscuits is an everyday pantry item. It is a low involvement purchase. The second point is that millennials, as they have shifted from supermarkets and from mom and pop stores to the online environment, they've grown up with it, but on the other hand, they've never actually bought it themselves. So therefore, if we're not able to bring that brand essence to life in the front end when they're actually about to make a purchase, we can't reconnect with them. And this is what we were finding. We were finding that while the brand was essentially loved, it wasn't being converted into sales and wasn't being engaged with as much as we wanted it to be. So we took this on as a specific opportunity to drive our business through digital marketing and online and deliver a more compelling experience. And this was really our opportunity, how to re-engage consumers via e-commerce and build a more compelling shopping experience. We did a number of things. The first thing we did was we started with a product. So our research showed that particularly in China, with the consumer base that we were talking about, the millennial consumer base, the Oreo cookie itself was perceived as being too sweet. Okay? So the filling was the key. So we engineered the product differently. We created something called Oreo Thins, and I hope you've tried it. It's certainly available in Singapore. It's a thinner, lighter, crisper eat, and something that addresses this specific kind of barrier of sweets. So first thing we did was start with the product. The second thing we did was start with the communication, online communication. So for those of you in digital marketing, you would know that whenever you take a digital asset in any environment, whether it's a search engine or an online platform, you've got a piece of real estate, and what you do with that real estate makes a big impact on what kind of experience you deliver. Now I want to show you some data points here. So you look at these 3 specific banners, and this was for strawberry flavored Oreo that we launched in China. So the first banner, and by the way, all 3 of them are communicating exactly the same promotional mechanic, if you like. The first banner shows the packet of Oreo, shows the connection to strawberry, communicates that strawberry has been launched, and the deal that we've got. And we've got a CTR, a click-through rate, that means the number of people that engaged with this content of 1.7%. We then gave a much closer snapshot of the packets of Oreo themselves and the connection to the strawberry. And the CTR goes up, 2.3. Then you go to the third one, you take the Oreo out of the packet, put it in a nice plate with the strawberry next to it, and you start to grow more and more this connection to what it is that your brand's about, this delicious moment of joy, right? And your click-through rate goes up even further. So this kind of ongoing experimentation on how to lift the engagement rates of our brands was the key to winning our consumers back, and we've been working on this pretty aggressively. And by the way, we talked even over yesterday about how to measure customer experience, and so we see this engagement or click-through rate as a very important metric for whether our customer experience, particularly in the digital medium, is heading in the right direction. Of course, there are many other measures, but we see this as an important one. The third thing we did was communication. So in China especially, this online environment, like Alibaba's Tmall, is being used partly also for entertainment by consumers. I mean, consider that lady in Shanghai that was going there and using it primarily to browse. And the platforms now offer so much more capability in terms of video content, live streaming, and so forth. And we did this. We took this up and we invested in working with celebrities that specifically showcased the product and talked about it and created some really interesting content. In fact, we even ran one last year called Oreo Dunk Campaign, which is about Shaquille O'Neal. That was anyway. The whole idea was you would get dunked in milk and so forth. So it works really, really well. And we found that you can see that you can again measure the experience impact you're having because they often allow you to leave likes, right? So the number of likes you get for this kind of content tells you how many brand fans you've created and therefore how many that you can retarget next. Okay, so we again see this kind of brand fans concept, the ability to grow brand fans through digital as an important metric of success. Then finally, we looked at the experience in a more substantial way. So Oreo, we wanted to experiment with personalization. Okay, now what is the ultimate in personalization? The ultimate in personalization is allowing you to be able to put your own face embossed on an Oreo cookie. And by the way, technically that is possible. The problem with that is it makes it a very expensive cookie then. So we can't lose sight of the fact that at the end of the day, we're in everyday fun brands. And therefore what we did was we worked with some contemporary Chinese artists that were very much on trend on social media and so forth, and we created packaging with a number of different choices of artwork, okay? And working with Alibaba, we were able to deliver this as if it were an experience to consumers, so the consumer could go online, could select from a number of artwork configurations, put on a personalized message, and choose a fun icon. And within that box, there's essentially standard packets of Oreo, but the experience of being able to configure the box in this way and create your own personalized box of Oreo was what we were after. And of course, in order to launch a campaign like this, we worked heavily on social media to create a brand buzz around this event. The reaction we got from consumers was really compelling, guys. I mean, you look at some of this feedback, there were thousands and thousands of positive comments about the brand. Most importantly, first of all, it changed the way in which the brand was being engaged. You remember, historically, it had been something that was bought as part of a grocery purchase. Now, suddenly, we had turned that brand into something that was a destination purchase that young people were going to specifically because their friends were talking about it on social media and were making, a purchase. And not only that, gifting that purchase. You'll see in some of the comments that it was actually used as a gift to friends, as a casual gift, where Oreo would normally have not been gifted. So again, in the spirit of putting metrics to consumer experience, one of the things we look at very much, and for those of you in media in the room, you pay for media impressions, right? Whether it's on television or online, you invest and buy media impressions, and those are paid impressions of media. What we look at is what percentage of earned impressions did we generate? That is, where people are talking about your brand and tweeting about your brand and writing about it on Facebook and so on and so forth. And that is a really important measure for us because that shows to us the impact that we are having on consumer experience as something that's tangible that we can measure. So this was a fantastic campaign, and we've continued to build on it. And I want to speak to you specifically about another one that we've done very recently. And this is even more interesting. So we took that campaign of the color-filled box, the box that had the artwork and so forth, okay? And we created a different type of box. And in this box, you could actually configure, again, the outside. But inside the box was a little music device, okay? The music device is similar to one of those old record players, the vinyl record players, where you can move the stylus on top of the cookie. And when you place a cookie in that little player, it plays a tune. In fact, when you take a bite out of the cookie, the tune changes. And it's, that was the intent behind the box. And the other part about this particular sort of offer that we created was on the box, and I don't know if you can see it on the left-hand side, was a QR code that on your smartphone you could scan, and when you scanned that QR code, this little guy popped out, this anime character, if you like, who would dance to the music and kind of, voice the music, if you like. And this was the campaign that we created in order to create this immersive brand experience. And it worked very well with the brand, or fitted with the brand promise, because the brand promise of Oreo, of course, the brand promise of the company is about bringing delicious moments of joy into your life. This is certainly joyful. And then the brand promise of Oreo was about playfulness. All of you remember the original Oreo advertising, it was about twist, lick, dump, right? So you play with your Oreo. And this encouraged you to play with Oreo. So we launched this campaign on Alibaba as our primary partner in China. And I just want to show you what it actually looks like. So, and I can't go to the next slide, but, here we go. So this campaign was a huge, huge hit because it was so immersive as a brand experience, and it was so simple in its delivery. We had, within a 12-hour period in the lead up to the campaign, 100 million impressions. That means 100 million eyeballs saw this campaign within a 12-hour period. 90% of the people that bought the product were new consumers. That means we were attracting new millennial consumers to the brand, and they were all bought as a single item purchase, so not bought as part of a basket of groceries. All within 12 hours. So we're going to repeat that campaign. We're planning to roll it out globally. And from that, we've learned a number of very important lessons, and I want to share those with you. Because I think what we have learned is that in the supermarket environment and in the mom and pop store environment, the way in which you engage and drive consumer experience is a space where we know and we've got a lot of experience in. But in this digital and e-commerce environment, there is a much more substantial opportunity for us to connect with our consumers. So the first takeaway I would offer is that e-commerce and digital in general is a huge, huge opportunity in Asia. I mean, we see that the proliferation rates of smartphones and online penetration for most of our categories are second to none. Second is that delivering a distinct, personalized, engaging experience online is the key to winning. And that means bringing out the essence of your company and the essence of your brand to life to its absolute fullest online. For brands like us that are everyday brands that, I don't know how many people have an Oreo tattoo, but for brands like us that are everyday brands that potentially don't get tattooed on your arm, it is possible to reinvent the brand online. It is really fundamentally possible to create a level of engagement that hasn't existed before. And the things I would offer as final tips are, rethink the product and the communication. Really think very carefully what can you do about the product, the packaging, as well as the way in which the offer is communicated. Absolutely reimagine the shopping experience and look to drive new shopper occasions. And then focus on also driving both lapsed consumers and new consumers to the brand, and do this in a way that you actually put measures to, because it should be measurable. It should absolutely be measurable. Thank you. Happy to take questions.
Now, just so everybody's aware, we're going to have a tattoo artist in the other room later on, so you can each get your tattoos.
That was awesome. Thanks for sharing. A question around your relationship with Alibaba and I assume other e-commerce players in the West. How much are you, or even in India, how much are you trying to directly connect with consumers versus relying on those third-party partners? And have you got a strategy to take that million impressions and turn it into your own customer database and build your own ongoing customer experiences directly, even though you still need to sell product through those guys?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So first of all, when we started this e-com and digital journey, we had a choice. We could have gone down the path of very much building out our own direct-to-consumer presence, if you like, a brand.com, or focus on partnering with the likes of Alibaba, Lazada, Amazon, etc. We chose the latter. The reason is that the nature of our categories and the nature of our brands tend to be low-value purchases. Okay, so even the music box that you saw was 100 RMB, so probably $15 US. Now, at that kind of basket size, it doesn't make economic sense for an organization like us to ship to a consumer's house. So it makes a lot more sense to work in partnerships. So firstly, that was the decision for working in partnerships with the likes of Alibaba. The second thing is that when you do work with, whether it's an Amazon or a JD or an Alibaba or a Lazada, actually what you have in most cases is a platform on which to build your brand and grow sales. You'll find that, if you take Tmall, for example, it's a platform for you to open up your own flagship store and manage your own brand experience. What you'll find these online retailers and online marketplaces are essentially giving you is the levers to be able to pull through, capability on the platform like video content, visibility, targeted impressions, and so on and so forth, to be able to build your brand acquire new consumers, drive them to your brand and drive conversion, and also use the data that it results in to even further target your impressions appropriately. So for example, if we have a brand called Belvita, all right, which is a breakfast biscuit. It's not in Singapore, but essentially it's supposed to be a brand that you eat for breakfast. Now, when we buy impressions online that specifically are looking to promote a new flavor of Belvita, we can actually work with Alibaba to ensure that those impressions are targeted in real time to the right shopper profile that has got the greatest propensity to convert into a sale. Now that kind of data is available to be able to do that in real time, and that's why we love the idea of working with these kind of partnerships, because it allows us to actually genuinely drive our own the front end experience, own the experience for our brands, as well as manage our own sales growth. So I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, by the way, that was super cool. The Tmall experience in China is obviously, unique, and that whole market's completely, its own thing. 2 questions on that. I guess you're waiting with bated breath for the rest of Asia to catch up, are you? So that can happen. And secondly, as a global brand, when you go to global meetings and you're talking about this whole thing, do people really understand what China's all about?
So thank you. They do understand what China's all about now globally, because we've been on quite the journey over the last couple of years. And I think we've also seen, we would all accept, quite the phenomenon in China when it comes to digital penetration in e-commerce, and it's been happening in real life. So I think our global organization does get it. Actually, the rest of Asia is catching up very fast. I mean, maybe it may never be as big in both percentage terms and in dollar terms as China is. But we're actually doing very similar things in many other markets. And a notable example is actually India. And it's not Oreo cookies, it's Cadbury chocolates. So so Cadbury chocolates in India, the chocolate market in India is very much a gifting market. So there are big gifting seasonal windows throughout the year. Of course, there are kind of cultural festivals like Valentine's Day and so forth, but there are big gifting occasions like Rakhi, Diwali, which are the big nationally celebrated windows. Now, we ran a campaign just recently, and this is why I can give a case in point that India's doing so well. We're 70% of the category in India in chocolate. And by the way, before we started this journey in e-commerce in India, the percentage of chocolate sold online was almost 0%. Well, that doesn't surprise me because we weren't doing anything and we were 70% of the category. So we've managed to shift that to close to 1% of the category now being online. And the recent campaign that we ran for Rakhi, and Rakhi, for those of you who don't know, is a celebration of the relationship between brothers and sisters in India. Now, in contemporary India today, brothers and sisters don't live in the same city, okay? So the idea is the sister ties this sort of a bracelet called a Rakhi around your wrist, and the brother offers a present. So what we ran was a campaign where you don't have to live in the same city. You can actually send your brother a box of chocolates with a gift Rakhi inside. And then the brother, and then when the sister made that purchase, the brother could return the favor with a different type of box. And it was a beautifully presented box, very much specifically tailored for that occasion. And that particular campaign ran brilliantly well, really, really well. So it gives us the impression and the confidence that the rest of Asia is fast catching up. We see similar experiences and proof points around Southeast Asia increasingly, and also we're seeing it more and more in Australia as well. So we're very, very confident that the rest of Asia is well on the way. And the beauty about Asia, of course, is that smartphone penetration is leapfrogging landlines in most markets, and modern trade supermarkets in many markets never really established. So online shopping is leapfrogging the modern trade supermarket environment. And that's really exciting space to be in. It's an opportunity for us to grow our brands incrementally into new occasions, which is what we're trying to do.
Thank you for the presentation. Very, very nice. I'm here. Well, congrats with the journey to penetrate the Asian market. I'm sure it's been It's been a long journey. I was wondering if you could share, because being a long journey, I'm sure that there have been a lot of, it's a steep learning curve. And of course, I guess there have been some failures along the way. I was wondering if you could share the main challenges and the main takeaways and how you came out strong from that.
Yeah. Well, there have been loads of challenges along the way. There have been many internal challenges as well as external execution challenges. A big part of the challenge internally, of course, is to get a multinational, you know, a $30 billion global multinational that has always operated in an environment that it's known to start to look at the world differently. I think the most the best example I can give you is that historically, and it's not just us, most FMCG companies like us, the way they would view the world is that you advertise on television primarily, or you may advertise online, but essentially what you're doing is advertising to send out a brand message. And by advertising, you're creating some kind of memory recall in the consumer. And then you expect that that consumer will then, in a different situation, be in a supermarket or a traditional trade store, be considering your category. And when they do consider your category, they'll remember the advertising, remember what they know about the brand, and choose your brand. What's happened online is that that moment of advertising and purchase is the one now. It's like you're watching TV and if you see an ad you like, I suppose you can kind of do that even now, but even more so, you can actually literally buy on the spot. And that's been a mindset shift that we've had to drive within our own organization. And I think we're well on the way to creating a tighter integration between brand equity build and sales conversion, much more so. Other learnings along the way is, I think globally as a company, to your point earlier about globally do we understand Asia, there are some unique challenges in Asia that don't exist anywhere else. I mean, you try delivering chocolates in India from one end of the country to the other, even during shoulder seasons, it doesn't even have to be peak summer, through a whole network of third-party logistics providers and get it to a house without the chocolate melting. It's quite the challenge. And so we've had to run a series of test and learns and experiments and build our capability to implement, if you like, a last-mile cold chain delivery process to be able to deliver the product in a reliable fashion and continue to deliver a good consumer experience. So we've had, of course, setbacks along the way. We've had campaigns that have gone wrong, consumer complaints, so on and so forth, which we've had to learn from very quickly and address. Just two examples.
Fantastic. We have time for one last question.
Hi, we are from HP Graphics. So I know that the packaging for Oreo 1 in the second campaign was printed in our digital printing professional printers. I was wondering about Japan. How do you intend to launch kind of those campaigns on a market that is very picky about details and about aesthetics?
So for those of you who I actually lived in Japan for 2 years with our company just before moving to Singapore, and Japan is got among the most highest online penetration rates in Asia. So Japan and Korea are probably almost up there with China in many categories. Japan is a really exciting market, and we absolutely are building our e-commerce and digital business there. We think that there's a lot of opportunity for us to take these kind of concepts to the Japan market. We will be very soon. I think you're right. I think in the Japan market, there's such a strong focus on the quality of the packaging and the way in which it's delivered. You've got to pay an enormous amount of attention to the packaging as well as the last mile delivery to ensure that the quality is maintained to its fullest. So those are the things we're working on perfecting. And once we do, we intend to launch some of these, specifically the Oreo-related campaigns in Japan as well.
Well, fantastic. Thank you for a great presentation. Let's give them a round of applause. It's been a great morning so far, and I think that you're going to see this continuing throughout the day. And so next up, I just want to keep things moving. Rainbow's going to come talk to us about Salesforce. Of course, I put this... Yesterday I was working off paper, and I thought, oh, you know, I should be digital. and I keep forgetting to actually have out my phone as I'm doing it. This is one of the challenges to digital, changing our behaviors. And as consumers, what behaviors we want to change or not. And even for myself, I like to do things this way, but yet I sometimes forget.